Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Cosmic Owl Astrology. And I have a very interesting guest on with me today. Bibhu Dev Misra. I first encountered him on Heather Ensworth's channel. She's on YouTube as well. She's also an astrologer. And then I finally got round to listening to his book. When was your book published, Yuga Shift?
Was 2023, December of 2023. So it's
Yeah,
been nearly 2 years.
yeah, yeah. But since the publication, of course, and this is why we're recording today on December the 19th, we have a third interstellar object coming through our solar system that was first spotted on July the 1st, way out in Sagittarius A constellation, right by the galactic center. It's coming closest to Earth today on this Sagittarius new moon. And I don't know if you know, Bibby, but in astrology, the Sagittarius new moon is at 28 degrees Sagittarius today, which is the degree of the galactic center, basically. So, and then if it doesn't break up, it's going to pass out of our solar system by Jupiter, which is the ruler of Sagittarius. So I thought it was a really interesting day to do this. But I'm going to let Bibby tell everybody about his book, the origin of it, his work. He's got a lot of stuff on his website. So go for it, Bibby.
Yeah, hi Louise. Thanks for inviting me for this discussion. And I'm the author of a book called Yuga Shift, and it's about the cyclical nature of human history and civilization, which is opposed to the linear framework that scientists tell us about. And what I have discussed in my book is the fact that a lot of ancient cultures, most of them in fact, they believe that human civilization moves in cycles and we devolve from golden ages of illumination and harmony and prosperity to dark ages of ignorance and strife and selfishness and greed. And as per that framework, we are currently at the bottom of the spectrum in the dark age or the Kali Yuga, as they call it in India. So, whereas as per the linear framework, we're at the pinnacle of civilization and going even further up. So, this is a very different viewpoint, and it looks at civilization in terms of its virtues and its dharma, how well we are living in alignment with our soul virtues, with other human beings, with the environment, and how well we are fulfilling our purpose of incarnation, which definitely is not to accumulate as much money and power as possible, but to manifest our soul potential, if you will. So I've looked at it from the perspective of many ancient cultures, and I've come up with a timeline based on this information, which tells us that this age of darkness or the Kali Yuga ended this year on the spring equinox date of March 21st. And we are now moving into a period of transition, after which we will move into the ascending cycle of consciousness. Well, actually, the ascending cycle has already started after the end of the Kali Yuga, but the first few years or the first few decades of this ascent is typically very turbulent and chaotic because the older civilization begins to decay and fall away. And a new civilization based on new ideas, new ideologies, uh, that begins to appear and manifest. So it's a time of changeover and transformation, of falling away of the old and the birthing of a new world and birthing of a new humanity. So it's obviously a very difficult time, a very difficult stage for all of us. There'll be a lot of material, social, psychological challenges that we need to deal with. And that is why I think it's something that more people need to be aware of in the modern day because we are already getting assaulted by so many things from so many different directions. And by understanding this cyclical framework, it kind of gives you a way to analyze and process whatever is going on in the world right now and what you need to be doing at a personal level.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a very good book, very interesting, so well researched. You kind of explored very many different cultures, and to be honest, I don't know how we humans could think that we were at the pinnacle of our with all the greed and how we treat the earth and all those kind of things as well. But you picked, as you said, you mentioned a very specific date for the end of the Kali Yuga, which I found really interesting because obviously, as an astrologer, I'm interested in the precession cycle. And I don't think we're in ever, there's like one date. Why did you pick that one date?
Yeah, because this cycle is tracked by an ancient Indian calendar called the calendar of the seven sages. And the
Mm,
seven sages were known to a host of different cultures. The Mesopotamians talk about it, the Egyptians talk about it, the Indians, the Persians, they all talk about the seven sages who brought civilization and wisdom and
mm,
knowledge to our world. And they are the ones who and there's a calendar which is named after the seven sages. And this calendar has a 2,700 year cycle, which is the duration of each age or each yuga
mm,
in this cyclical framework or the yuga cycle. And the
mm.
changeover from one cycle to the other happens on the spring equinox date. So I
Okay.
first arrived at the year 2025 by means of certain data. And then since this changeover from one cycle to the other always happens on a spring equinox date, and this year the spring equinox was actually on 20th of March, not 21st, but whatever. It's on the spring equinox date that this changeover takes place from one cycle to the next. So that's how I
Mm.
was able to come to that specific date that it's 21st of March 2025.
Now, I find that really interesting because I work with the Venus cycle, which is why I wear the Venus star, and I work with a thing called the Venus star point work, which is the five-pointed star that kind of move conjunctions with the Sun and Venus that kind of moves backwards through the signs over time. And the Venus star point was on, I think it was exactly that same date that you uh, where you said the Kali Yuga ended, and the Venus retrograde last March was the most intense one. I've taught this class on this retrograde for since 2017, but last March we had a Venus retrograde and Mercury retrograde at the same time, going from almost the same degrees from Aries back into Pisces, so the first sign and the last sign of the zodiac. And they were in the middle of two eclipses, and there's more I could say about it as well. And it was tied up with all of this Saturn Neptune as well at the end of Pisces. So anybody who's been following this channel for a long time will know what a big deal it was last March. So, I think, astrologically, you could be onto something as well. But before we go on to the Torrid, um, uh, whatever you call it, I can't remember the full name, but we'll talk about that in a
Swarm.
minute. Yeah. What's your thoughts on these interstellar objects and particularly this three-eye atlas? Because we are unaware of there's been three so far, right, of these interstellar objects. And so far, at least in this current culture, we've been unaware of anything like this coming through our solar system before. And the Galactic Center in astrology is thought to emit new knowledge, right? And send out waves of plasma, dark matter, whatever you want to call it. And so, what are your thoughts on particularly this three-eye atlas?
Okay, first let me talk generally about comets. Comets
Mm,
are extremely important in terms of these changeover periods between one age to the next, because when we look at the data for the previous civilizations and their collapses, because there have been so
mm,
many collapses. For instance, right now we are living in a period that historians would call the Iron Age. The Iron Age started at around 700 BC. Prior to that, we had the Bronze Age, which almost entirely collapsed in a period of around 300 to 400 years between around 1100 BC to 700 BC. All traces of that
Mm.
civilization was gone. So these kind of periodic collapses seem to be happening all the time. And what we have seen is that comet and meteor impact events play a very important role during that transitional period. They play a role not only in the destruction and the kind of fading away of the older culture, but comets also bring water. All the water that we have on our planet came from comets. We didn't have any water to begin with on planet Earth. So comets bring water. They bring organic molecules which are
Mm.
essential for life. They emit a lot of gases which are also supporting the ecosphere and the ecosystem, and they also bring DNA and RNA molecules to seed new life on our planet. So in a way,
Mm.
they function like cosmic birds, just like we have birds on our planet which fly long distances and they deposit their seeds along the way, and that kind of helps in the growth of the ecosystem. In the same way, comets journey across different solar systems, especially interstellar comets like Borisov or 3I Atlas. The journey across different planetary systems, and they bring not only their own chemical signatures and their own energetic signatures, but they also transmit DNA and RNA molecules, which help in the growth and evolution of new life forms.
Mm.
So in that way, comets play an extremely important role during these turnover periods. And if we use the analogy of birds, you know that when there's a dawn, a new dawn, that's when the birds become more active, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So, and this coming out of this darkness of the Kali Yuga into an ascending cycle is equivalent to coming out of the period of darkness into a period of dawn.
Mm.
So, my feeling is that we are going to see increasing cometary activity going forward. This year
Mm.
itself, we saw a lot of comets coming to the solar system. There
Mm.
were around five or six in the last
Yeah.
few months.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so I think there'll be more cometary activity there. They're going to bring in more, they're going to influence us with the energies. They're going to influence not only planet Earth, but also
Mm.
the other planets in our solar system. For instance, 3I Atlas passed very close to Mars and
Mm-hmm.
must have left its energetic and chemical signature on Mars, which in turn affects humans because
Oh, yeah.
Mars is going to play a role in how humans behave astrologically.
Mm-hmm.
Similarly, it's going to leave its signature, chemical and energetic signature on Jupiter when it passes very close to Jupiter in
Mm-hmm.
March of 2026. And Jupiter in turn is going to influence us astrologically. And right
Mm-hmm.
now, today is the closest to us, but it's not really that close. You can't see
No,
it with
no.
you can't
Yeah.
see it with your naked eyes. So the effect, the direct effect on us wouldn't be so significant.
Mm.
It would be minimal, I would say. The direct effect, but the indirect effect on
Mm.
the solar system or the other planets of the solar system is going to be
Mm.
significant. And there's another thing is that a lot of people, because of the fact that Triad Atlas was perceived to probably be an alien spacecraft,
Oh, yes. I
a lot
saw
of
those reports. Yeah.
So a
Yeah.
lot of people have become very interested in this object, and that in turn tells you that people are getting more interested in comets, not
Mm.
because of the fact that it's a comet, but because they thought that it might be a spacecraft. And a lot
Mm.
of people are more interested in UFOs than they are with comets and
Mm-hmm.
other organic structures of our universe. But I don't think it's a spacecraft because there's no reason
No.
why a spacecraft should have a coma, why it should give out oxygen and
Mm.
carbon dioxide and water and carbon monoxide and all the other gases which comets give out. Why it should have a tail? Why it should travel in a
Yeah.
parabolic or hyperbolic orbit? Because a spacecraft can travel in any direction, in any way. It can give out any
Mm-hmm.
kind of gases.
Mm-hmm.
And so, no, I don't think it's a spacecraft, but it is leaving its signature on our planet. It's
Mm.
waking up people, making them think about comets. And one of the things, a very interesting thing that I found about comets is that they could actually be conscious, because a lot of
Mm,
these gases which are emitted by comets, they're also emitted by microbial life forms on our planet, like say algae and bacteria. And they also have
mhm,
tails. Remember, bacteria have tails, algae have tails, and they
mhm,
move in a very similar manner. They move towards the light and away from the
mm,
light because they need to photosynthesize. And we know that comets can break up into multiple fragments, and
mhm,
bacterial life form like algae, they also break up. I mean, they undergo a binary fission when a particular bacteria might break up into two daughter cells, or it might be a
mm,
multiple fission where bacteria breaks up into multiple daughter cells. And a similar
mm,
kind of thing also happens with comets when they suddenly disintegrate into maybe two comets, or maybe plenty of
mm,
smaller comets. So I feel there's a big possibility that comets are not just made up of ice and frozen ices and
no.
gases, as scientists assume, but they might actually be some kind of space organisms which move on their own, and which come into our solar system, maybe to photosynthesize, maybe to release some gases, maybe to influence us
Mm,
energetically, basically to do whatever they are kind of
yeah.
programmed to do.
So they are aliens in a way, just not what we think of as aliens, really. So 'cause it's alien materials in a way, or alien,
Right. I've
whatever.
actually
Yeah.
written an article on my website, so if anybody's interested, he or she can go and check out that
Mm,
article, because there are a lot of similarities between the way
mm,
comets behave and microbial life forms, like the
mm,
plankton. Like we have this plankton in
mhm,
the oceans. They move around in these streams or in the water currents, in the
mm,
same way the comets move around within the meteor streams. So there's a lot of similarity in the way that they behave. And if we think of
mm,
the cosmos as the great outer ocean of the universe, then
mhm.
they are like the plankton moving around in the
Yeah.
ocean.
So, but this three-eye atlas and the two before, which the names I can't remember of the interstellar objects, but this one's particularly interesting. It's different to what we've normally experienced with comets within our solar system, right? Because it's believed to come from way out of our solar system, and it's also changed color. It started off as red, then green. Now they're saying it's gone gold, right? Which,
It's blue, I think it's blue, right?
well, I read one thing that said it was kind of a goldy color at the minute,
Oh,
but I think it's been changing color,
yeah.
as it's moved through, and also it's got this path that just kind of flies right by our solar system, rather
Mm,
than kind of this the most comets kind of swing through it, right? So
yeah, yeah.
if I'm explaining that well. So, and we don't know where it comes from. So, what's your thoughts on that? I know it exhibits comet-like behavior, but it is kind of alien, to use that word, to the comets that we're used to. Have you
I
ever
think
heard of
all comets.
anything like this before? Or, mhm, mhm,
Yeah, I think all comets are conscious. They all have a
mhm,
purpose. There's a reason why they come into the solar system. It's not accidental. And the very
mm,
fact that this is coming from the direction of the galactic center means it might be coming with a specific purpose that has
mhm,
been kind of programmed into it by the galactic center, because the galactic center is the source and the origin of
mm,
everything in our galaxy. That's the cosmic womb. That is that is the creator, that is
mhm,
Brahma, that is the Christ consciousness, that is the energy that flows through the whole of the galaxy and
mhm,
enlightens us. That is the source of souls. That is where we originate from as souls, and
mm,
that is where we go back after we complete our reincarnation cycles. So that is the most important place in the whole galaxy, and fact
mm,
that it is coming from the direction of the galaxy tells us that it has probably some important purpose which we
mm.
are still not aware of, and still hasn't gone away from the solar system. It could
No.
break up. It's closest to the Earth right now. It was closest to the Sun a few
Mm.
weeks back.
Mm.
It could still break up.
In November, wasn't it? Near
Yeah,
Thanksgiving in the US, actually. I think. Yeah,
yeah, that's
yeah.
it could still
Mhm.
break up, and maybe the fragments of that particular comet could move in a different direction. We'll have to wait and
Mm,
see if that happens. Or it could give off some other kinds of gases or
mm,
organic molecules. So,
mm.
or it itself could change trajectory, although that
Hmm.
normally doesn't happen too much, but we'll have to
Yeah,
see.
and it hasn't changed its trajectory at all so far, has it? They've been pretty
No,
spot
only
on. No.
minimally. Yeah,
Yeah,
only minimally.
yeah. Now, I always think in terms, as an astrologer, think in terms of the archetypes in many ways. I do, and we'll talk about the Tauriid resonance swarm in a minute, which also has a relationship to Jupiter to a degree. But my ascendant, by the way, is at 28 Sagittarius, so this is why I think I'm really feeling this interstellar object, comet, whatever you want to call it. I find it really interesting that Jupiter as a planet, which rules Sagittarius, has also been called Santa, and of course, this time of year, which we have the solstice tomorrow, is was the original time that we celebrate Christmas before Christian times, right? And it changed from, well, it changed according to Stefan Burns, who I watch. He's a geophysicist, from red to green to gold, which are very Christmassy colors. It kind of feels like Santa's bringing us some gifts of some higher knowledge, which is very Sagittarian, right? So before we go on to the Torrid resonance swarm, what's your feeling in the fact that it could be bringing something in that can help us to um, avoid the um, cataclysm, except you call it something else when it's this time? Ekporosis, was that the word? The Greek word? Yeah.
Yeah, that's the name of
Hmm.
this particular transition period,
Hmm.
which means cleansing by fire.
Yeah.
And see, we have this descending cycle and we have an ascending cycle.
Hmm.
At the end of the ascending cycle, when we are in the golden age, at that time there's a period of transition which is called cataclysmus, which means deluge. That's when the
Hmm.
world is cleansed and renewed by water and ice. And that period
Like the
corresponds to what?
flood. Yes. Yeah.
And that period corresponds to what we now know as the Younger Dryas period, when the world went through a period of very intense cold and the
Mm.
glaciers, they all advanced to their ice age positions. So we did go through the period of cataclysmus, and there was a drastic reduction in the human population. A lot of
Mm.
all the ice age megafauna, they were all wiped out. And we started practically on a new footing at around 9600 BC. That's when the descending cycle started, and a
Mm.
new civilization kind of came up. And all
Mm.
traces of the earlier golden age or the high or the ascending cycle, they're all gone. I
Gone.
mean,
Yeah.
we don't know anything. There's no unless you say that maybe the pyramids are a remnant, but we don't know that. It could have been
Mm.
built, during the period of transition
Yeah.
or sometime afterwards. But otherwise, we really don't have any kind of remnant which has been recognized
Mm.
to belong to the previous ascending cycle. And now we are at the exact opposite point of that cycle. We are
Mm.
in the we're passing from the descending cycle into the ascending cycle with a period of transition in between, which is called ecpyresis or the cleansing by fire. And that's why fire events are likely to be very pronounced in this
Mm.
particular period of transition. So we could
I think we're
see,
seeing that already, right? With increased
yeah,
wildfires and
these
yeah.
wildfires are getting stronger and
Hmm.
more powerful and causing a lot more damage than they did in previous years.
Mm.
And then you have volcanoes, becoming active in many places. A lot of volcanic eruptions happening in many
Hmm.
places. That's also fire. And
Hmm.
then you have these ongoing wars that are going on. This year itself, we have seen these sporadic conflicts break out between we had between Israel and Iran. Then there was this
Yeah.
small one between India and Pakistan, and then you had a one between Thailand and Cambodia. And these sporadic
Hmm.
small conflicts, which did not really happen last year or the year
Mm,
before that. You didn't see so many conflicts happening in the same time in a
mm,
particular year. So war and explosions, these are also signs of fire. The cleansing by fire, there's the external fire component, which are these wildfires or impact events or
mhm,
volcanoes or wars and explosion. And then there's the inner fire, the fire of knowledge, the fire of love, and the
mhm,
fire of wisdom. And that is also going to happen at the same time. So as the outer world kind of gets impacted by these
mm,
environmental events, our inner world or our inner self will get purified by the fire of wisdom and love, because the galactic center is now becoming active. In
mhm,
2024 we saw that the galactic center is started giving out a radiation in the visible
mhm.
spectrum. It never did that before, never in over the last few centuries. It
No.
never have radiated light in the visible spectrum, and now it's giving off flashes of light in the visible spectrum,
Mm,
which means it's getting active now, and it's giving us a new wave of light, new energetic
mm,
emissions coming our direction, which can help in elevating our consciousness, purifying our
mm,
egoic mind, and coming in touch with our soul vibrations. And that's when
mm,
we become more wise, we become more content, more grounded, and we
mhm,
can see things for what they are. We can see through the lies and the deceptions. We can see what doesn't work for us and what does work for us. We are more concerned with the welfare of everyone other than and not just my own selfish
yeah.
well-being. So that transformation, that inner transformation, is already happening right now. It's been gathering pace over the years, and
Mm,
so both will happen at the same time. In my opinion, the
mhm,
collapse of the older system and the emergence of the new humanity will happen at the same
mm,
time. And I don't think this is something that can be prevented. The severity of it can be reduced, but based on how well we react to it, how
yeah.
positively we react to it, how but you can't do away with the transition, because we are going into an ascending
Oh no.
cycle. So whatever doesn't work, whatever is evil, whatever is dark,
Mm,
whatever is greedy and selfish and controlling and unloving, that
mm,
has to either transform, or that has to be removed.
diet.
Uh,
Oh, yeah.
because I cannot go into the higher cycle.
Mm,
So, as far as so you asked me a question whether it's three eye atlas is going to have an impact on this kind of changes
mm,
that we'll experience. It could,
mm,
if it increases our awareness, if
mhm,
inspires more people to move away from their narrow-minded pursuits into
mhm,
more evolution of consciousness, more sharing and more caring and more loving,
mm,
then that's going to help this transformative process. That's going to
mhm.
reduce the and number of negative events that are going to
Yes.
happen, and that's good for all of us.
Yeah, and I feel it is. I definitely feel that I've um, you know, shifted my perspective and my wisdom and very much rapidly over, the last few years, really. I came into astrology as pretty much like the old style astrologer. Now I kind of see the bigger picture and, I see different truths emerging. And I believe the Galactic Center, somebody's actually photographed it now. I did have a picture of it, of he said he'd photographed dark matter, this person that photographed it, but it's kind of like you said, these kind of waves of light, and I do feel it's, to my mind, mutable signs like Sagittarius are very much about our perspective and our belief and our faith in many ways, and Sagittarius being, and Jupiter being like Santa. I think we're being asked to kind of expand our consciousness and believe in something bigger, but that's my kind of feeling. And I feel like Three Eye Atlas is bringing that in, even if it doesn't physically come bring anything into the earth. I
Yeah,
think
if
it's.
there's yeah, even if there's just a recognition
Hmm.
in the scientific circles of the possibility that there
Hmm.
are other worlds out there. There are other
Mm-hmm.
dimensions of life out there that
Mm,
there can be consciousness existing in within
mm-hmm.
our solar system or outside the solar system in different forms.
Mm-hmm.
That
Yeah.
awareness itself is very liberating. Because
Mm,
right now, the dominant idea is that, oh no, Earth is the only place where there's life. There's no consciousness anywhere else. We are nothing after we die. Those ideologies have to go away. And so many of us
mm,
are, brought up with those ideas that,
mm,
there's no life out there. And even now, there are so many
mhm.
people, if you talk to them about aliens, they would be like, do you believe in aliens? I'm like, well, I know there are aliens. I don't even have to
Yeah.
believe in it.
Yeah.
Was that
They just,
mindset?
they just might not look like we think they look. You know, that's all.
Yeah,
You know, or even like you know, because you've studied all the science. You know, the about 95% of the cosmos is dark matter or dark energy, right? So what we see as physical, biological energy is a very small percentage of this big beating cosmos, in my opinion. So, you know, how why should we be the only kind of life? But it might just look very different to what we think of as life. To my, that's how I think. But
exactly. And
so,
if you read the ancient
sorry, go on.
texts, and I mean, when you read about these cycles
Mm-hmm,
across the world, you find people talking about other dimensional life forms, interacting with those people, passing on
mm-hmm,
knowledge and wisdom, helping them in so many ways. And uh, in Babylonia, there was a
mm,
scholar called Berosus, and he said that all of the wisdom that was given to the people of Babylon by the seven sages, nothing was added to that in the last
mm,
10,000 years till the time of Alexander. So
mm,
complete was that learning. But once we were entered into this Kali Yuga, this long period of darkness, there has been a forgetting. A lot of that
oh,
knowledge was forgotten, it was lost, it got distorted willingly.
mm-hmm,
So now is the time that we need to try and recover as much as
mm,
possible of that ancient wisdom. Try to remember who
yeah.
these people were, who our ancestors were, and try to understand that there are other dimensional life forms, and they play a very
Mm-hmm.
important role in not only the evolution of civilizations, but also the journey of souls across lifetimes. It doesn't
Mhm,
happen by accident that you die, and then where do you go after that? That whole cycle
mhm,
of souls is governed by these higher dimensional intelligences. So there's a big
mm.
hierarchy of interdimensional beings who look after the school that we call as planet Earth.
Yes.
And we have lost sight of that particular idea.
I believe we have, you know, and even in just kind of the kind of woo world that I've been in for many years, you know, I've seen increasing talk of, you know, giants used to roam the earth. Well, you talked in your book about how we've actually decreased in size. So I don't want to. I want people to go and read your book. So let's not tell everybody everything. But you know, and so you know, and there's theories that aliens did walk the earth as well, and you know, maybe we did come from other planets at another time. Who knows? I don't think we know yet. I don't think we've recovered enough of this, do you, at this point? And
But this is a time of
we may never totally remember all of it, right? I don't
Right,
think.
but this knowledge may be given to us once again, and this is
Hmm.
a time that a lot of truths might surface and a lot of new discoveries might be made about
Mm.
many different things, about not only the ancient wisdom, about the universe, the cosmos, the interdimensional beings. This is a time
Hmm.
when a lot of those truths might be rediscovered and it might
Hmm.
surface. And so, from that standpoint, it's actually a very exciting point of
Yeah.
exciting yet to be alive, because this is a time that paradigms are dissolved and new paradigms
Mm.
come up. So it's a lot of things going on at the same time, and your
Hmm.
experience would probably depend on where you're putting your attention and your focus. If you're looking at the
Yeah.
negative side about all the bad things that are going on, you're going to be miserable. But if you're looking at all the good things that are already happening and might happen in future, and you putting your energy and focus into that, then it could be
Hmm.
a very exciting time to live in.
I agree, and I'm excited. I hope I live, long enough to kind of uh, see some of what's coming on the other side. So let's move to this Taurid resonance swarm. This bit really kind of grabbed me in your book. So, if it's okay, do you mind if I kind of read a little bit about what Google AI says about the swarm? It says it's a dense, gravitationally trapped cloud of debris from comet Enki, which orbits in a 7-to-2 resonance with Jupiter. So there's Jupiter again, right? So causing concentrated clusters of dust and rocks that create frequent fireballs, so fire there, and increase impact risk during Earth's close passes in certain years. Now, you said, and you've studied it through the science, right? Through the studies of the scientists, they suggest that we will go right through the Taurid resonance swarm in 2032 and 2036. And I find it interesting from that it's called Enki, because Enki's an ancient name for one of the ancient gods, right? So I can't remember which culture that was in. So, do you think this will necessarily bring Earth impacts, or do you think we are being given the chance to know this is coming and maybe uh, help ourselves be minimized by the impacts of passing through this?
Well, I think there are 2 years when we are going to
Mm,
pass through this particular swarm. Now, the torrid meteor stream is like this elliptical structure,
mm,
like a tube, and we pass through it twice a year. Once we pass through this tube in June, July.
mm-hmm,
That's a daytime meteor shower known as the
mm-hmm,
beta torrids. And then once again, we pass through the stream in November, October, November. Those are called the Halloween fireballs. That's when you have some large fireballs every year. But
mm,
we don't pass through the particular swarm. The swarm is created by the original parent comet,
mm-hmm,
which broke up in stages and created this meteor stream. So, meteor
mm,
stream is nothing but a river of rubble, which is left behind by a comet with the Earth
mm,
crossing orbit. So, as the comet orbits around the sun, along
mm,
its track, it leaves behind all its rubble. It keeps breaking off and creating this rubble. That's the meteor stream, and that's what we
mm,
pass through every year. But we don't pass through the swarm. The swarm is a tightly packed grouping of the original parent comet, which could be maybe 100 kilometers in diameter, and many of its
mm,
smaller comets, uh, which were formed by the breaking up of that particular parent comet. And we don't pass through that swarm every year. We pass through that swarm once a few years, once, in hundreds of years. And in
mm,
2032 and 2036, we're passing through the dead center of that swarm. And
mm,
what my feeling is that in the first passage in 2032, and this is based on a number of factors, a number of prophecies that I have read, a number of other things, Hopi prophecies, and there's this prophecy
mm,
from Garabandal in Spain. So what it tells me is that in the first passage, we'll get a warning. We'll probably see one of those comets get active. And this particular comet is the one that the Hopi called the blue star Kachina. And what they
mm,
say is that when the blue star Kachina appears in our sky, that would indicate that the end times are here. And it would impact us psychologically in the sense that we feel like there are fires burning within us. So we'll be profoundly affected. We might even get collective life reviews, like the life reviews that you have in an NDE kind of an
mm-hmm,
event where person goes through this near-death experience and sees his own life flashing before his eyes. And he immediately knows what are the wrong things that he has done and what are
mm,
the right things he should have done. So that's a life review. And I think that the first passage would be a time when collectively as humanity, we get a life review. We understand that
mm,
what are the wrong things that we're doing to ourselves, to others, and to our planet, and how we should be ideally living.
mm,
So that message will come through to us in a very powerful manner, I think at around 2032.
Mm.
And then we
Do
are
you
given the opportunity
could I
to
could
change.
could could I just ask if you think we feel that coming as it gets closer? It's not just going to be at that moment that we pass
I
through.
think we'll see it.
Okay.
It's a blue
Hmm.
star Kachina. So I think what
Mm,
will probably happen is sometime before 2032, maybe 2029 or 2030 or 2031,
mm,
we see that comet lighting up, but
mm,
it wouldn't come very close to us.
mm,
But in 2032, it might even enter the Earth's atmosphere. And
mm,
when a body like that enters the Earth's atmosphere, the energetics is extraordinarily powerful. And
mm,
that's going to affect us profoundly at a psychological level. And we
mm,
might have this kind of profound reaction to it, telling us that, okay, Kali Yuga is over. We need to change our ways
mm,
of thinking and working and behaving. So that would be a warning to us. And then I think a lot of people will heed that warning and they'll start to work on their own consciousness rather than, go away from this paradigm that you have to accumulate and power and wealth and constant
yeah.
sensory stimulation. They start to go away from that paradigm. But some people will still not. They will still not
Hmm.
heed that warning. And they'll think that we are the masters of the universe and we can do pretty much whatever we want.
Yeah.
So the 2036 passage will probably remove that resistance to our
Mm,
evolution. So whatever doesn't still change its ways, that will probably be removed in the 2036 passage. So I
mm,
don't think these impact events are random. They don't
no.
happen in a random manner. They are very carefully orchestrated by higher intelligence because, like I said, I believe comets are conscious and they can be
Hmm.
controlled telepathically by higher order beings, telling them what exactly they need to do, what exactly needs to be accomplished in this transitional period. So they'll be
Mm,
guided by these interdimensional beings to do whatever needs to be done to make us change over, to make us
mm,
transform. And whatever little resistance still remains, that will be eradicated. So it's
mhm,
not, I don't think, I'm personally not scared because I think as long as we transform, as long as we heed the messages, as long as, we are not arrogant and adamant,
mhm,
we'll be okay. But
mm,
if we're not, then there's going to be cataclysms. And
mm,
if there are cataclysms, then we'll be affected. Even if we change over, you'll be affected, at
mhm,
least in a material sense, in a material sense.
mm,
And I think at the end of the day, we shouldn't be so concerned about even our material condition
mm.
for short periods of time, at least, because you know. Ultimately, we don't come with anything and we don't take anything with
No,
us back,
we
right?
don't. And really material things and money, they're only energy anyway. So, it's like,
Yeah, so even
you
if
know,
we have to go through some kind of,
mhm,
let's say, kind of, uh, how would I call it, rehabilitation program for
mm,
addicted people, like
yes,
drug addicted people, like, they go through a time of rehab. In the same
hmm,
way, materially addicted people might have to go through a rehab just to
yes,
let them know that, look, guys, you don't really need all that money to be happy. You got
mm,
whatever you want within yourself, and
hmm,
using that, you can find whatever you need to be happy. You really don't need
mm,
to waste so much time and effort running after things that don't really contribute to your happiness. So that rehab might be necessary,
I think
and
so.
we and
I
and
think
exactly,
I
and if it,
I think I'm seeing that already, just in clients as well. Though sometimes, sometimes astrology clients will come in fear of going, "What if I lose everything?" And I'm going, "Well, what does that mean? Everything, you know?" And they're all like, "Oh, you know, good point." So, just before we move on to 2036, there's a couple of astrological cycles that really coincide with that 2032 um, Taurid swarm pass through, if you like, call it. I'm interviewing somebody who wrote a book called Persephone's Revolution, and she has tracked the Pluto out of bounds cycle for many years, and Pluto is going out of bounds for the last time every year between now and 2032 to the south. And she said because it's going out of bounds to the south, that's usually a time of people rising up and coming together, right? So that gives me hope too. But also on March the 20th, you will recognize that date, but it's actually, yeah. We actually, March the 20th, 2033, we have the last retrograde Venus Sun Venus conjunction at 0 Aries on that March the 20th. We do have one more though, March the 21st, the Sun and Venus meet again at 1 Aries. And then after that, we don't have any more Sun Venus conjunctions in Aries in our lifetimes. And of course, Aries is more fire, cleansing, and then we'll move back into Pisces, which is much more peaceful and much more loving. So, I think these things are really all kind of coinciding, even if I get down to kind of the nitty gritty of the planetary and things. And sorry, I'm going on, but one more thing before I let you speak about the 2036 one is I mentioned, the Taurid swarm comes from the comet Enki. It's spelt differently, but the god Enki, Enki, was a Sumerian or Mesopotamian god of wisdom, fresh water, creation, magic, crafts, and trickery. So he was known for his benevolent cunning in helping humanity, and guiding heroes in myths like the Great Flood. So I don't think there's any kind of, coincidence about these things, right? So go on
Yeah,
with
I
your.
mean, Enki is kind of the lord of the underworld. He's like the counterpart of
Hmm.
Osiris in Sumerian religion and the counterpart of
Hmm.
Yama in Hindu religion. So he's
Hmm.
the lord of the underworld, lord of the waters. And,
Hmm.
under the surface of the earth, there are layers of aquifers which go down nearly
Hmm.
30,000 feet, and we have no idea as to what's going on there.
We do
So,
not.
even
Although we
if there
do,
are
we do, we do now have images of things beneath the pyramids, right, going down
Yeah,
into
very,
those things.
yeah, not very clear, but yeah, we
No.
have some images. But these ones, these aquifers go down 30,000 feet, and even
Mm.
if there were, billions of pyramids out there, we
Hmm.
wouldn't know about it.
No.
And so, what the Sumerians say is that Enki is the lord of the aquifers. He lives in this fresh water below the surface of the world, and he's the god of vegetation and the god
Mm.
of arts and crafts. And uh, the son of Osiris is Horus.
Yep.
Horus is the god who comes back to destroy evil.
Hmm.
And so
The
Enki,
the divine child. Yep. There you go.
yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
So in that sense, the son of Enki, I just forgot his name. How could I? You
Mm.
know?
Oh, it's easily done. There's a lot to remember, so I can look it
Yeah.
up while you
Just a second. I'll just
and Enki's son.
Ninuta. Yeah, Ninuta.
Oh, yeah.
Son of Enki is Ninurta, and he's the god corresponds to Horus in the Mesopotamian religion, and
Mm.
so he's the one, he's the savior, he's the Messiah. He's going to come back and destroy evil. So it's very
Mm.
uh, so it's quite a coincidence that the comet swarm is also named after Enki because
Mm.
that's going to be also the destroyer of evil, because that swarm is
Mm.
really the destroyer of evil. So
Yeah,
the name is also quite of a you know quite a
it is.
coincidence.
Yeah, well, I don't think there are coincidences really,
Yeah.
but I do notice, and we live in this paradigm that we live in right now that um, all these myths and everything only speak to the male saviors and things. But what about Isis and all the wives, basically because all these myths have a trinity, right? They have the god, the goddess, and the divine child. And so what if maybe Isis or Enki's wife, what was her name? She was Ninma, or she
Yeah.
had a few names.
Ninhursag, I think. Ninhursag, I
Hmm.
think.
Yeah, they spell it a few different ways. So the
Yeah.
Earth's mother goddess, what if it's not one coming back, but the three, the Trinity, the mind, body, spirit, in many ways coming into
Yeah,
wholeness.
I think the son of Enki would manifest both the masculine and the feminine side. That's what they say about this the savior child.
Mm-hmm.
He manifests both his parents.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like Enki and Ninursa coming back together in the
Mm,
form of their child
mm,
Ninuta, or
yeah,
Horus coming back in the form of Osiris and Isis.
yeah, yeah. So, one other question. Have you heard of some of the centaurs that had kind of walked into our collective consciousness? Because we have Chiron and Chariclo and their daughter, their divine child, um, Okiroi, I think that's how you say it, who's known to be a seer. Um, how I believe these planetary energies have come into our consciousness to bring in this consciousness expansion and things. So these three are moving into an alignment together astrologically as well. So I really just feel like, they are yet another validation that we are being invited to kind of step into this interconnectedness and wholeness. What's your thought on that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, these new, I think you call them dwarf planets, or what do you call them?
Oh, well, they call them centaurs, like the
Centaurs.
half man,
Yes.
half horse, but I
Yeah.
don't I don't think they really know, the astronomers, always, to be honest,
I think
because
the centaurs also display some kind of cometary activity from
yes, they
now and
do.
then.
They do. Yeah,
Yeah.
Chiron was called a comet at one point, right? So, mm,
Right, yeah. So
mhm,
they are very mysterious objects, and once again, you
mm,
have comets coming to the picture. So I think that
mhm,
makes it more interesting and more, I would say, unpredictable as to what you can expect going forward. And then you have this conjunction of five planets in Libra in the year
mhm.
2040.
Yeah.
And that kind of a conjunction happens once in thousands of years. That's
Oh,
like they're all conjoined in Libra within a span of around 10 degrees. So you can cover it with your fist. All the
yeah.
five planets, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, all the five visible planets, which the ancients used to
Mhm.
track. They didn't track the other planets. They
No.
focus mainly on the five geocentric, the ones visible to the naked eye. Those are the ones they mainly track. And as per the
Mm,
ancient doctrines, this conjunction of planets in Libra marks the end of the descending cycle of consciousness. So you don't have
mm,
any more descent into chaos after that. And they say that there are two such conjunctions. One conjunction of these five planets happens in Aries, and that happens at the end of the Golden Age. And the other
mhm,
conjunction happens in Libra, which is the direct opposite of Aries. And that
mm,
particular conjunction happens at the end of the Kali Yuga, or the Iron Age, at the end of the descending cycle of consciousness. And that is happening in 2040. And to me,
mhm.
that is such an important conjunction, because you don't have that happening every now and then. That's like a once in a 12,000 year conjunction. And,
Yeah.
and that amplifies the significance of this particular period. And it tells me that beyond 2040, this negativity of the Kali Yuga is unlikely to be carried forward. And whatever transformation needs to happen at a collective level
Mm.
will probably happen between now and 2040, which is not really a very big span of time, because
No.
15 years is
Mm.
nothing in terms of our civilization.
Yeah, and it's not very long away, really, is it? We can see the change speeding up more and more. And so I just feel like, yes, there will be more big fires and things like that because we have not learned our lessons with things like that yet. I just, for people who might hear the words, like big cataclysmic events and things like that, I don't think the human race is going to be wiped out. And you say in the book that you don't think it will either, right? So.
Certainly not. I mean, it's only
Mm-hmm.
the evil and darkness which will be eliminated, and
Mm-hmm.
there might be some collateral damage, I don't know. But
Mm-hmm.
for the most part, the idea is not to punish, the idea is to transform. And I think the focus of this particular transitional period is to transform as many as possible so that they can
Mm-hmm.
become the seeds of the higher age, the founders of this higher cycle. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it is to punish or to destroy or to
No.
kill, but
Yeah.
eventually whatever needs to be removed will be removed, because
Yeah.
you can't carry forward undeserving elements into the higher cycle. They'll just spoil
Mm-hmm.
it for everybody else. They'll be the party
Yeah.
poopers. You don't want the party poopers to be there.
And I see that not just as undeserving elements amongst humanity, but like methods of industrial farming and things like that. I think, some of that needs to go. Astrologically, I kind of feel like a lot of this began in the real kind of transition. I feel it began a bit earlier in astrology during the Industrial Revolution, which we all said was like, oh, great. Well, yeah, we all have power and we all can have more and we can all have this. But it also has caused untold damage, right? So, mm-hmm,
And even the modern pharmaceutical industry with
mm-hmm,
its animal testing that goes on behind the scenes, and with
mm-hmm,
all the different kind of medicines which don't really cure you but make you
mm-hmm,
dependent on the system, that has to go as well. I think we need more holistic techniques of healing people, of healing their diseases, more
mm-hmm,
plant-based, more homeopathy, more sound, more light, more energy. There's so
mm-hmm.
many healing modalities. We've forgotten some of them, but I think those are going to come
Mm-hmm.
back once again. And the
I
other thing is
agree.
that when you're in the ascending cycle, you are not suffering from diseases so much. Everything changes.
Mm-hmm.
The environment condition itself changes. The viruses, they disappear. So you wouldn't need so many healing modalities anymore. But whatever
Mm-hmm.
remains would be something that actually heals you, that is not destructive either to our health or to the environment.
Mm. So it's not very long then, guys. Whoever's listening, next 15 years, it's going to be interesting. So 2036 is the second time that we'll pass through the Taurid swarm. But I did want to mention that I also did read, going back to Three Eye Atlas, that yes, it's quite far away from Earth and it's closest to Earth today. But because of the motion of the Earth in the solar system, we will kind of pass through some of the debris that it's emitting, the Three Eye Atlas comet, or whatever you want to call it. So we are going to get some of whatever it's throwing off, or whatever is being burned off it, is the way. So it's all part of this big energetic consciousness shift, is all I can feel it as. Yeah, so it's a really good book. So anything else you want people to know? Um, we didn't really go
Well,
into
I mean, if you're a Christian, I would probably add that I also believe that the period from 2029 to 2036 is the 7 years of tribulation, which is mentioned in the
Mm,
Revelation and the biblical text. And I believe that in 2029, we'll probably see the rise of the Antichrist, and he'll
mm,
probably be the president of a particular nation.
mm.
And
I thought he was here already.
He's, I don't know who it's going to be. I don't know the name, but 2029 to 2036 is most likely, my belief, is going to be the 7 years of tribulation. And if
Mm,
you look at the rhetoric that is coming out of Europe right now, all of
mm,
them are planning for a war with Russia by
mhm,
2029 or 2030. And the leaders of the
mhm,
states, the prime ministers, the defense secretaries, they're all saying the same thing. We have to prepare for a
mm,
war with Russia by 2029 or 2030. They're
mm,
planning for it. They're preparing.
mhm,
They're increasing the arms production. They're just going full steam into that. And
Hmm.
so that tells me that,
I think I think I think that's because they believe that that's what Putin wants, that they are going to expand westward, right? They want to,
yeah, but that
yeah.
could just be an
Mhm.
excuse as well. I don't know what's going on
Oh,
behind the
yeah,
scenes.
yeah.
But the fact is that they are prepping for that
Mm,
encounter. And if
hmm.
that encounter actually happens, you pretty much know where that's going to end up.
Mm.
So
Oh,
yeah, so
yeah.
this period from 2029 to 2036 is gonna be, I think, very, very turbulent, and you need to
Hmm.
prepare yourself emotionally and to deal with
Hmm.
anything that
Hmm.
is really, world
And
changing.
well, and I think that's when we have to go to thinking locally, really kind of looking after each other in the community and, and supporting each other. And for me as an astrologer, I see part of my mission or role in all of this is to keep telling people they have to kind of look at the possibilities and then look after each other and remember that we are interconnected totally. Everything's interconnected. And I think the more I say that, and the more people like me and Heather Ensworth say that, the more people will remember that, right? So um, that's all we can do, I guess. So.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're all
Hmm.
transforming. I mean, nobody has
Hmm.
reached nirvana right now. So we're all
Mm.
transforming. We're all trying to become the best versions of ourselves, and we are
Mm.
trying to pass on the information and inspiring
Mm.
people to, be their authentic selves. And once you reach that state, there's really nothing to be so scared of.
No,
People
I
are
agree.
scared when they're attached to this material reality. Once
Mm.
you see through the illusion, and once you kind of get a sense of who you truly are and what you have within
Mm.
yourself and what your purpose truly is, then that sense of fear and anxiety goes away to a large extent. But you still need to
Hmm.
prepare to deal with sudden
Hmm.
events and stuff. That you cross the bridge when you get there. There's no point
Hmm.
worrying too much about what's down the line.
And
But we are definitely in a
the
place of
sudden
transition.
events could happen anywhere, right? And in
Anywhere,
any form.
exactly,
So,
exactly.
yeah. So, you can only prepare so much, I think.
Correct.
So, well,
And
this
as
has
long
been a
as you
real
remain in a
pleasure.
happy state, as long as you're remaining happy and content
Hmm.
and doing your thing, you
Mm.
wouldn't be so uh, even if something happens suddenly, you wouldn't be so affected by it. You would probably take it more
Exactly.
casually than a lot of other people. Like I saw during the pandemic, so many people were so nervous and so fearful and so
Mm.
scared, and it didn't affect me even a little bit because I knew what was exactly
Mm.
going on. So, yeah.
Yeah, I don't fear anything about what might come because can't control it, and we don't know exactly how it's going to show up anyway. So there's no point in fearing what could happen. Anyway, I always believe that anyway in all areas of life. It's like you could be run over by a bus tomorrow as well. So there you go. Oh well, this has been a real pleasure, and uh, Bibhu also has a website, so it's bibhudevmisra.com. I will put the link, in the show notes on YouTube so that you can look him up. I can highly recommend the book. It's really interesting, and you cover so many things that I would have loved to gone over, but you mentioned some of them, the Hopi cycles and things like that. And living as an immigrant in the US, always had a real strong interest in the Native American kind of indigenous myths and things. So yeah, go get the book, follow Bibhu, and kind of just well, to go back to the Santa remedy, this is bringing gifts too, right? Our consciousness is expanding hugely, so I would kind of think on that side of things. Any last words from you, and we'll say goodbye.
Well, Louis, it was a pleasure talking to you, and
Mm.
we touched upon some interesting topics. I hope your listeners get something out of it, and
Mm.
they feel inspired and informed, and you know. let's all try to be the best versions of ourselves.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Bibhu.
Thanks.